Paul, how big a blow was the news about John Walters? He kind of offered you something different, didn't he?
He did. I think, on the pitch also it was, very clear to see what he could offer off the pitch as well, in terms of, another senior pro giving advice. I think the minute he walked through the door, he commands that respect, and that's easier done as well when he carries himself how he does. He doesn't have to come in and tell everyone, I'm here. He was just, down to earth, good character, good work ethic. I'm disappointed for Ipswich Town, of course, everyone of us that are connected with the club, but also for John on a personal level, because of how hard he'd worked to get back fit. Then, some players are very precious about maybe, I want to stay, in the Premier League, but he just wanted to play football and came out to a club that meant a lot to him and still does. And now that's been, taken away from him, and he's got another sort of long road to go down in terms of getting back fit again.
Burnley have accepted it's just one of those things?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was just saying there, I touched on it maybe slightly last week. He'd been and seen the specialist, and he'd been to see him a couple of years previous, and he'd got some, I think, images and evidence from the past, and he said that the Achilles was in much better shape than it was before, and there was never a thought that he would go on the pitch and make it worse. So it was a shock in that sense, that has happened. So no, I don't think there's any one to be held accountable. Unfortunately, these things do happen, and as much as we have, the medical team, sports science, all of that, the top teams obviously have it. They still get injuries, so it's not the be all and end all, but it hopefully helps. But in this case, it's like I say, I think we have to put it down to one of those things.
Are you on the lookout for a replacement? You still have the free agent market available to you?
Yeah, again, I think the danger is, we're now almost into October, and that's a long time probably unless the situations are different somehow, to have not played and not be fit. And I would suggest it would take a good month to get someone, fit. So then, you could still argue you've got a couple of months to work with them, but it's not an ideal situation, that's for sure. Wouldn't rule it out, but at the same time, I think it would be difficult to perhaps find that person that we think can contribute, and not just, not by just a name, or, but be in the good shape and in the position to really help the squad and the team.
Clearly a different sort of striker, but Freddie must come back into the equation. He's not been in the 18 the last 2 or 3.
Yeah, well, he was injured. I'm trying to think if he was injured the last one. Certainly the one before, I think he might have had a day's training, something like that. But he's trained this week. He looked quite sharp today, in fairness to him. Apart from him wearing his tracky bottoms on a beautiful day like today, which I don't know how he manages that. But no, he scored a few goals, and yeah, he could come back into, certainly will travel with us to Birmingham.
And can Jordan Roberts put pressure on these boys, these strikers? Do you see him as a first team forward?
He's played there for the 23s, the people that have been to the games. Switched the other day with Ben Falami. I think Jordan's still got some work to do, in all honesty, to really push, the likes of Ellis and Caden, Freddie. But it is a position he played. I think he enjoys playing there. So it's maybe something that we have got as another option that's not maybe the first thing that you think of. And let's be honest, we might need that moving forward.
And what about Ben Falami, you mentioned him there? Is he getting a bit closer? He played a few games at the end of last season and got his new contract.
No, he's back out with Australia. So he's with their team, and he's got a tournament coming up. So Ben's away, I think, for over a month. He'd had a couple of weeks away prior to that, a training camp, to make sure that he was going to be part of that squad. So it's a great experience for him. but not, so someone that we're not going to be able to call on at this present time.
But longer term, somebody that's caught the eye in training here that you can see a future for him?
At times, yeah, and at other times, he's not quite being at the standard that I think you would have to be to really come into the thinking. But it get, like any, or a lot of them, young players, and it's very rare that you get a young player that can consistently stay at level. Lots of ups and downs, and I think Ben's been that really from coming in. He caught the eye, then he struggled in a couple of games, and then he's kind of been with the 23s more. But I have to say, when he came back from Australia and had a couple of days with us, looked sharp, and he did well in the game the other day. So hopefully that experience has helped him, and when he does come back, I'm hoping that he'll be in a good place.
Any other injuries out of Birmingham?
We've had a couple of knocks, in training that could rule players out. So that might have to be a late call. But we are travelling tomorrow, which is not ideal in terms of knowing exactly what we're doing. But we'll see how they are.
And maybe that tough call at the back, which we thought we'd have last weekend, you will have this week, because I guess January comes back into the picture without John Walters.
Yes, he does. And he was the one that was unlucky last week, in fairness. I thought he did well, particularly sort of his 1v1 defending against a difficult opponent in that second half against Brentford, and showed what he can do. Like I said, that's one thing that has been taken away, but I'd rather still have that problem.
Pleased with Matthew Pennington last week, the first time we've seen him at right back.
Yeah, I think he's got a fantastic attitude. Can't speak highly enough of him, and I think we're speaking. You had a player from Everton on loan last year here in Connolly that I think they're very, very similar by all accounts in terms of attitude and the way they conduct themselves. Excellent young pros, and credit to themselves and probably to Everton Football Club as well. I think he's done very well since he joined us on just before the deadline.
And last weekend, one half of the conundrum solved, the clean sheet, and that gives you something to build on.
Yeah, he does. Albeit people point to 10 men, and of course he was. Still have to do it, and it wasn't quite as long as what some people think because of John going off for that last period. But I don't feel we've been far away from him. In truth, I do feel like we've been punished in not all games, but certainly in some games where they've done very little to us. And when we've looked at shots against us and things like that, it's been frustrating that we haven't. We've had to wait so long to get that. It'd be great if we can get 2 in a row. That's what we'll be aiming for. Against a team that are just on the back of a very good win at Leeds. But at times they've had their own problems of maybe should have got more from games that they hadn't done at times.
Have they been playing well? It sounds like it from some of the comments Gary's made in the last couple of weeks, Birmingham.
When I've seen them, yes. I was at the Sheffield United game. They did very well in terms of, I think, frustrating Sheffield United initially, and then came on strong at the end of the game and had the better chances. But I'm saying they've kind of adopted a certain approach certainly the last 3 games. Prior to that, seeing them on TV against Swansea, they played a different way and were on the front foot and created a lot of chances but couldn't take it, and ended up having to settle for a point when they should have won that game. So it'd be interesting to see how they approach it, because I'm sure they'll be looking to build on last week and think it's a very winnable game for them, and we hope that maybe they take us a bit lightly and we can capitalise on that.
How big a surprise was last week, that result that they got at Elland Road, or is that just the nature of the Championship and we'll see them right the way through, and there's no reason to say why White Town can't beat Middlesbrough, can't go and get a result at Swansea kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the league is tough, but I think all leagues are. I still think this league has got a group of teams that, with the strength in depth and the budgets, and someone mentioned earlier, sort of, if you look at Derby and obviously Martin not getting on the pitch in midweek, that's the strength that what they've got. But it's football and anyone can beat anyone on a given day. I think, again, our games, realistically, the majority of them have been pretty close and perhaps could have gone slightly different ways than they have. You know, was it a surprise? It was in some ways because of how well Leeds have been doing. But at the same time, having seen them midweek and thinking about how they might approach that game and then particularly when they get themselves in front, they can be a very difficult team to break down.
There are almost two divisions within the Championship. Do you think maybe Stoke in the wrong position at the moment?
You would have to think so with the players they've got. In the end, though, you have to perform, and your name and your history and even what those players have done in last season can count for very little. At the minute, that's how it is. But I think we all would be surprised, sat here now, if at the end of the season they're anywhere close to where they currently sit.
Thanks, Paul.
So Paul, we've trashed the table tennis table then.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Obviously, it's been not the start you were after. I mean, how is everyone behind the scenes? How's everyone coping despite the fact it's 9 games in, no win?
I think on a day-to-day basis, it's still a bubbly squad, and I've said all along, if I'm really upset about something, I'll let them know. But I don't expect them to come into work and be sulking and down and not showing enthusiasm, because whatever position we are in, it's still a fantastic job to be in. And I want them to. It really grinds on me when I feel you've got some people that don't appreciate what job they have and the profession. And we all know how many people out there would happily swap place with them in a heartbeat. So from that point of view, it's fine. I think it's just when it gets to that game day, because of how things have gone, it's not as in negativity, but just having that belief that we can really get the result that we want. And even last week, it's the dynamic change in the game when the sending off occurs, and we found it extremely difficult to break Bolton down and take advantage of that situation. But overall, I think the lads are in good spirits, and they have to keep believing, and that's the important part. And I keep saying I've got my part to play in that, but they've also have to do that themselves, as individuals and collectively, because it's no point me just saying it or the crowds really cheering them on. They've got to have that belief because they're the ones that are out on the pitch.
I guess there are always mitigating circumstances, aren't there? Whether it be injuries, sendings off, bad decisions. 9 games in, do you feel the bits of the jigsaw are coming together? Do you think you're getting closer to solving the mystery?
I think overall there's not one definitive way, and the players themselves, I keep saying it, I don't expect to just have 11 players that can perform. So it's always a moving jigsaw, if you like. But I think we've pretty much settled on a way to play from day one. I think once we've really deviated away from that, apart from the little sort of change in the midfield area at times. So I think we know what we're trying to do and where we're at with that. Time, you would think, helps people understand exactly what those roles are. But each game is different because the opposition will have a different way of playing as well, and they're trying to put their game onto you. We saw that I think last week, particularly with 10 men, where it was a totally different game than it was midweek against Brentford. So you have to be adaptable all the time. But I think I'm certainly getting closer to thinking this is my team. But because of maybe some individual performances, it's certainly not set in stone at this stage.
As manager, how do you go about instilling confidence, gaining greater belief in your players?
I think you try and you tell them in terms of how you've seen games, and highlight periods maybe where we've been on top, we just haven't quite taken advantage. On the training ground, you're praising them. We demand But I have to say, you know, when people do something good, it's not like, oh, we don't say anything now. You have to tell them that that's, you know, a good piece of play, a bit of skill, a good finish, good defending, whatever it is. And just, I think for me, keep sort of ramming that message home that, you know, we haven't been totally outplayed. We haven't come off thinking, wow, you know, they're miles ahead of us. Brentford were extremely good, but we had our own periods in that, particularly that second half, where, you know, we looked a decent side as well. And it's important to try and concentrate on that. I've said, I think in some individual errors has cost us more than being, you know, really outplayed. And it's just trying to cut those out. But there's nothing better than victories in terms of everything, you know, to really buy into everything that you're doing and give you that belief again to move forward.
Are you worried? Are you worried for yourself? Are you worried for the team? Are you worried about the supporters given the start?
I'd rather not be where we are. You know, that's comes without saying. Worried, I think, is... I think straight after a defeat, you have a lot of emotions going on, and it's never an easy time. But I think given a bit of time, like most situations, you start to think about things, you know, a cold light of day, be a bit more objective about things, and then you get back into work, you know, you're back with the players and you're on to the next one. So, you know, again, I've said before, I'm a realist. I understand the job that I'm in and how the season's gone so far in terms of results. But I think you're very much focusing on the next one and trying to, you know, get that first victory first and foremost, and then try and start climbing the table. You know, strange as it was last week, the positives were we kept a clean sheet and we move up a place. You know, it's not, we weren't out partying thinking that's it, we've cracked it. But at the same time, it was a very, very small step, granted, but it was a small step forward.
You do still seem very positive, very calm, very relaxed. No sense of panic stations behind the scenes.
It's not my nature. It won't be my nature and hasn't been in my nature when things are going the other way. I take it as a compliment that in general people say you're, you know, pretty much the same all the time, and you can't tell whether, you know, you're top of the league, whether you're bottom of the league, whatever it is. That's me. Some people say that's boring, and that's fair enough. I don't mind that. If that's how people want to see me, I can have a good time in certain situations, and, you know, the odd time I can decide that I don't really want to speak to people. But overall, as I said, I really appreciate the job that I do. I know there's a lot of people that aren't in jobs that would love to be sat where I am today.
So, after 4 away matches and 4 away defeats, a really boring win this weekend against Birmingham would be ideal.
Yeah, I might even smile if we got that. So, no, we said that it doesn't matter how it comes, and I genuinely believe that we will win a game of football, whether it's Saturday or next couple of weeks, playing worse than what we have done so far. I'm not saying that it's been absolutely brilliant, but I guarantee you we will play worse and win a game of football.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Does the club have to pick up the bill for John Walters now till the end of the loan still? There was no break in there or anything that would look at potential injury? Or?
I think there was a break in January, but I let the other people in different areas of the football club deal with that. But that's, you know, that's the risk that you take, and, you know, realistically, I think it's pretty obvious we weren't paying all of John's wages in the first place, because I don't think he would have joined us had that been the case.
Yeah. The 23s, what did you make of the performance in general? Anyone sort of catching your eye or pushing for the first team?
Very good performance, you know, very impressive. I thought the first probably 25 minutes in particular was outstanding, but I think they've had periods like that in quite a few of the games. Against a Coventry team that, you know, while with some of the senior pros, absolutely 100%, I think that's always open to debate, but was certainly, you know, not playing against, you know, Coventry's youth team or anything like that. So yeah, there was some good individual performances. I think it's doing that consistently, and while they can only perform in the game that they're given as such, I think what we all have to appreciate and understand is it's still very different than going out and playing against Birmingham on Saturday or playing against Bolton the week before, because one thing certainly is the crowd. I think the speed of the game is different. But again, in fairness to the lads, they can only play against the opposition that's in front of them, and so far they've done extremely well in a high percentage of the games and find themselves top of that league at the minute.
We talked about Freddie earlier. Would he have been in the squad then had it not been for injuries? Because people have been looking at his absence and wondering what the situation was.
At the risk of someone somewhere saying I'm lying, I can only think that the first time he was left out, it was just a decision to leave him out. He's then definitely missed a game, and I think realistically 2 through injury.
What's the injury?
It was a tight groin
Right.
that he pulled. I think it was 2 days before a game. I think he felt that and then wasn't fit. Like I said, don't absolutely quote me on it. I might have got the finer details wrong, but he certainly missed a couple of games through injury rather than just being left out after that initial game that he missed.
He started the first game against Blackburn, didn't he? And he's
Yeah.
someone that we all know his backstory with, he'd gone a long time without a goal, and he finally got a few goals towards the back end of last season.
Yeah.
He was one that people were thinking maybe a new manager might be a fresh start for him.
Yeah, I think in fairness, I think some of the players have maybe said he looked a different character sort of pre-season. Again, we're back into that thing that I wasn't here. I can't tell. It's not for me to. Or I can't really make that call. But they did say, look, lively. I mean, Freddie's a great lad. He's not loud, but that when something's going on, often probably involves Freddie, or he's a funny character. I think he'll be popular again within the group. And Freddie may well have his part to play. I haven't, just because I didn't involve him in a squad doesn't mean that he's cast aside. And again, it's a player that we've got that has played Championship level, and you would hope isn't going to be fazed by anything. And hopefully, maybe feels like he's got a little bit of a point to prove.
Did you consider either him or Ellis Harrison for the 23s just to get them some minutes and maybe even some goals just to get the confidence up with players like them?
I think I've shown already I won't just play, it won't be like just a squad that is 23s and then no first team players supposedly will not play in it, but at the same time, I think in Freddie's case, he probably wasn't. I don't feel I'd get enough out of Freddie. I don't think, not at this moment in time at least. I think he'd be better training with the group. And Ellis probably similar at this moment in time. I know he didn't get on at the weekend, but has had some part more often than not. So, at the minute they've, and the odd part is then try, if you do include them, then some other lads that aren't getting game time that probably need it more in terms of the development, I would say.
Matthew Pennington, you've voiced your praise for him. You signed him, I assume, as a centre-back, but can you see him being a right-back over a longer period of time, given his performance?
Yeah, I think so. And again, it depends exactly what you're wanting. But realistically, I think maybe something that you wouldn't automatically pick up on and know as a fan is how fit he is. Extremely fit player. Gets up and down the pitch extremely well. And again, I spoke to a manager that had worked with him before, and he'd said he did a really good job for him at right back. So I think he's definitely got that in his locker. But initially it was more admittedly signed as a centre back, but given how well he'd done, and again you know, there's other things to consider in terms of the makeup of the team. You know, we've got to be strong in certain areas, and perhaps if he wasn't in there against Bolton last week, I thought we might struggle in certain departments. So yeah, I think he can certainly do that, but at the same time fully aware we've got another couple of lads that would, you know, want to be considered as well.
It's your birthday this week. Did the lads do anything for you? Bring cakes in? Anything?
No, you buy cakes. I have to buy cakes. When it's your birthday, it's almost like a punishment, to be honest, when you're at a football club. So yeah, it's we were just saying before we started this, once you get past 21 hours, more of the feeling birthdays were not something to particularly celebrate.
Yeah, Dean Gerken's just been in here joking aside, saying how great the mood is in the camp, and he's been here a long time, and he's saying it's, you know, it's up there with the best it's ever been, and very bubbly, and speaking very genuinely about the music's always on, you know, through the week it's always good, and it's getting that to go into match days now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, when I say things, people can always think, oh, he's only just saying that or whatever. So I prefer it when other people, you know, perhaps speak about things like that. I know I've had a player said to me that they think it's the best squad that we've had. Now, again, straight away I know people say, well, we haven't got sort of Martin Waggo and we haven't got Adam Webster, Joe Garner. And again, I'm not going to sort of comment on that, but they feel that strength in depth is the best squad we've had. Now you look at the table at the minute and look at results and people think that that person's mad. Hopefully in time we can sort of get to a point where we can really see something, you know, developing and building, and something to build on. And it's a small thing at the minute, and it's not down to the first team. But I like the fact that the sort of under 18s are top of the league, the 23s, very different league, and you never know what you're coming up against. People change teams all the time. Is that a fine, Grant? And it's still nice. And I think all I would say is, longer term, there's a lot of good young players here. Whether how many can go on and really make it and have a championship career, if you like, we'll see. But I like that fact because it breeds sort of a winning mentality. We've got to try and make that happen in the first team. But I think overall, you know, the training ground, it is a good environment, and you know, people will either believe me or not, but that's the way I see it.
How's your assistant Chris Doig been when results aren't going well and the manager's, you know, feeling the pressure? The assistant has a role to play in terms of feeling the pressure.
Yeah,
as read, but
I think
Chris helped to sort of keep your spirits up. How do you work as a duo? Well,
Chris often makes me seem really happy, so that's probably an indication of what Chris is like. No, we've worked together a long time now, and I think we know how each other are, and it's something we've, you know, spoke about together, as in when we are together, there's an element of, you know, maybe him trying to, you know, make me feel a little bit better or vice versa, because I think we both can see at times it's easy to look at the things that aren't quite right. So, you know, he's hurting. Yeah, it's his pride, same as I said, he does mine, because, yeah, I'm sort of, I guess, the person that's, you know, does this more often and things like that. But Chris takes it very personally as well. I'm not saying every decision I make that he would, you know, agree with, but at the same time, you know, he's very much part of it, and, you know, plays a big part. So he says he's never really happy, but he's certainly been happier than he is. But continues to, you know, we want to work hard to try and, you know, change that.
So what, are you both bad cop then at times? Bad cop?
Sometimes, or one of us just has to shut up, or, you know, if I've maybe said something, there are occasions when I won't ask Chris for an opinion because I don't want it to maybe be any further or things like that. But again, that's just getting to know situations and doing what you feel's right at the time.
Very best of luck.
Thank you. Cheers.
Andre Nero, your thoughts?
He did well the other night again. he had a little spell where I think along with the team they just drifted out of it, and then he came. But what the pleasing bit was, then he finished stronger. So yeah, he's again moving in the right direction. His fitness side, he's not a million miles away, which is pleasing. And if we can get him involved, then I've said from the start what I think of him as a player. So hopefully, yeah, he might not be too far away.
And Emir, how's he getting on?
Emir, he's no, I felt like we were having a really good week with him, and his mindset has been very positive. And then he's come off training there, and he's saying he's got a bit of swelling in the back of his knee, and he's not feeling too good about himself again. He got through training, but I can't say that he's on top of the world because he's frustrated because there's some bit of swelling, like I said, behind his knee. So we're doing better. We are doing better, but it's just getting to that point where it's just like, right, he's had 2-3 weeks training. We kind of nothing. And the 23s we decided not to play him and just try and get some more training in him, and it looked like it was going well up until today, but we'll see how he is this afternoon and in the morning.
Bish is about another week away with his hamstring, I think, and Tom Edioni's the only other longer term injury.
Yeah, and again, while it might seem a strange thing to say in some respects, but it's good that people are fit and available. You see, when you're flying, I expect that. When you're at the other end of the league, it's very easy maybe to go, I'll just give it a little bit longer, or I'll take a step back. And I just felt that little niggle. I don't quite fancy it this weekend because things aren't going too well. Again, that's credit to the players individually, and hopefully in terms of, like I said, what we're trying to create, that mentality, to push on. You always have adversity. It's how you deal with that and respond to it, and that's what we're looking for, people to step up and want to make a difference out on that pitch.
When you get a situation like with John Walters last week, where he's had a bit of, I think he picked up the injury against Hull, didn't he? And then he was left out of the Brentford game. Yeah. And you said he trained. Do you get any data on that you can assess before?
Yeah, but not.
Whether to pick him?
We get data, but not in terms of any data that would highlight anything with his hamstring, Achilles, sorry. So, like I said, all we can go on at the time was, one, he trained in front of us. 2, John said he was fine, and while I'm not saying John's a doctor or a physio, we spoke about he's an experienced player. And thirdly, as I said earlier, the surgeon that had a look, the specialist that said that it was better than it was a couple of years ago. It was in really good condition. So that's, like I said, the frustrating part, that it's not like we've had maybe been given some advice and then gone against it. But I'm sure John would have wished that he would have felt something, so he maybe didn't get that injury. Like I say, I'm disappointed for us all, but particularly for John.
Okay, thank you.
So you mentioned at the beginning that there's a few couple of doubts ahead of Birmingham on Saturday after training.
Yeah.
Obviously, aside from the sort of longer term ones that Phil asked about, are you able to sort of let us know which players might be?
I can give you a really short answer there. No. No, sorry. I don't want to. Things might change over the next 24 hours. We'll see.